pocket.
People say Sidhu has a lot of money.
Tell me the amount that I should spend. If you say give 4 million rupees and everyone in the village will be fed, I will do.
Some say Sidhu only cares for his own village.
You know, we used to think we would be able to do it all, but whenever you need to get a bill passed, it needs to go to the ADC, then to the MLA, and then whoever else after that. That's the issue.
Can't you spend it out of your own pocket?
How much can I pay from my own pocket?
People say Sidhu has a lot of money.
Tell me the amount that I should spend. If you say give 4 million rupees and everyone in the village will be fed, I will do it.
You left Canada and come back to the village because you love it so much. Is there something you're planning to do for the village?
Brother, I am already doing it. You know how people act when they come back from abroad. I am taking ownership of my responsibility and will continue to do so, whether we get the village leadership or not.
So you would always keep working towards the development of your village?
Yes, always.
Yes, Sidhu had become famous recording music in Canada. He wanted to come back to his humble village of Musa to try and make things better. And while it would be a few years before Sidhu would really immerse himself into politics, his political career started when he began campaigning on behalf of his mother, Charan Kaur, who was contesting for the post of Sarpanch, or president, at Musa village in the Mansa district. Sidhu would use his fame and notoriety to bring out fans and spread word of the campaign for his mother. And Sidhu was praised for attending the local campaigns regardless of his superstar reputation. He was credited by the Indian News for wearing his casual attire and remaining humble when supporting his mother, and the village would praise Sidhu for being humble enough to join them in person despite being a megastar at this point. Sidhu had shared the proposals for his mother's candidacy, including her plans to improve Musa with improvements to drinking water and sewerage in the village, and the family also agreed to take a harsh stance on the distribution of drugs within the local area, as in recent years Punjab has been suffering through an opium epidemic which has resulted in many farms being ruined and families being subject to severe poverty, with stories of boys as young as 12 years old pushing drugs in the streets.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that. You know what I'm saying? You think it's just a small village, farmers, and you wouldn't think that it's a drug epidemic like that.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
And families being subject to severe poverty, with stories of boys as young as 12 years old pushing drugs in the streets of the Punjab. And there's no lack of supply, as these drugs are mostly imported from Afghanistan, fresh from the source and extremely pure. Now this issue has become alarming, with the United Nations even commenting on how bad the situation's got. The problem is so rife that even pharmacies are allegedly dishing out opiates quicker than the dealers, with many not even requiring a prescription. And it's been said that the government and or the police may even be playing a part in spreading opium in the community, sometimes referred to there as feme. And there'd been minimal efforts to tackle the problem and aid the region, despite the formation of an anti-drugs task force and rehabilitation centres. But the issue has become so normalised that some Punjabi politicians are even calling for the legalisation of opium, claiming that it's actually part of the culture. Sidhu and his family felt very strongly about overcoming the opium epidemic, and in one interview, Sidhu also shares this as the reason that he never promotes drugs or alcohol within his music. Sidhu understood his influence over the youth, and he didn't want to make getting wasted look cool. And this could well have been a subtle dig at Karan Aujla, who famously was part of a series of songs all about getting wasted, with a music video filmed in a liquor store called Alcohol. Now Sidhu also shared his plans to star and produce in Punjabi movies with positive messages to the youth, and in just 2 years of being an entertainer, Sidhu had his eyes on the top. He had already cemented himself as a star in music, he was now getting his feet wet in politics, and even planning to take on the film industry. And forget about being the Indian Tupac, Sidhu was now trying to become the Desi Arnold Schwarzenegger. This campaign turned out to be a success, and Sidhu's mother would actually win the election, beating her rival by 600 votes and indeed becoming the president of the village. And this shows the influence and power that Sidhu Moosewala's family now had over the local area. Even in the West, a female politician winning an election can sometimes be seen as a sign of progressive success. But in Punjab, this woman winning the election was a huge deal, and not everyone would be happy about it. During this time, news of Sidhu's success and brash style had become making the rounds internationally, with many media outlets voicing their negative opinions on Sidhu, showcasing guns and violence in his music videos and lyrics, with some journalists even calling out Sidhu and the other rising Indian rappers as fake gangsters, questioning their street credibility and suggesting they'd never even touched guns, with this Canadian news outlet bashing South Asian artists for rocking the gangster image. However, local statistics kind of paint a different story, suggesting that in fact South Asian gangs in Canada are in fact incredibly deadly, responsible for a third of the violence in British Columbia. Canada in fact has a very deep and dark history with Canadian Punjabi gangs. For example, the notorious kingpin Bindi Johal and the several murders that he had allegedly committed and was connected to. He would often appear in news interviews and walk around freely, with his gang empire described by one outlet as something like a startup that scaled too fast. He was responsible for creating the Punjabi Mafia, who terrorized the streets of Vancouver in Canada through the 90s. His crew became infamous in the streets, and Bindi himself became so famous that he was actively being followed by news teams for updates on his murder cases.
Are you worried about your safety in India?
I never worry about my safety. My safety is no problem.
And what about the shootings last night?
Just move the camera, or you might have to worry about your safety.
Hey, get that thing out of your face. I'll rip it right off your head. I don't give a
Okay? He would go viral before being viral was even a thing, telling news reporters that the streets need to be scared because he's still around.
These guys to know you got another thing coming. I'm still around.
Unfortunately, he's no longer around. And just like every other high-profile crime boss, eventually things would come crashing down, as Bindi Johal was eventually gunned down in a nightclub in 1999. Perhaps due to these past issues with violent gangs, the Canadian media would prefer to keep any violent influence off the streets, and that included Sidhu Moosewala's raps about shooting ops and toting guns. But at this point, he was just getting started, and after a wild 2018, having reached the top of the Punjabi music scene and going toe-to-toe with another rising Indian rap star, releasing a classic album, and then using his fame to launch his mother into political power into his village, moving into 2019, Sidhu would keep that momentum going and set brave new levels for his music career. But the problem was, as he got more and more famous, he got more and more controversial, and his music would get increasingly violent with more and more lyrics about firearms. Combining that with his Sikh principles, warrior mentality, and lyrics calling upon the next generation of youth to rise up, the increasingly political Sidhu Moosewala might just become a problem for those who were really in charge.
Wow.
After going toe-to-toe with fellow Punjabi rap star Karan Aujla, Sidhu Moosewala released his classic debut album PBX1. The project spawned 3 main singles: Jat Da Muqabala, which came out soon after the album, that had a hook essentially calling out his competition and sneak dissing Karan Aujla. It would also have violent lyrics where he began to hint deeper at his street activity, rapping that he could be found at crime scenes and saying that he doesn't drink alcohol but he does play with guns. And he would rap about how big stars are scared of him since he came in the industry and how his ops run from him, as well as saying that his ops get jealous when they see him driving his G-Wagon, and ending the video with a message saying jealousy and success don't go together. Now, this song is an absolute banger. I've had this one on repeat since I found it. I just love the way that the beat and the melody kind of flow with his lyrics. It sort of reminds me of like a Punjabi version of French Montana's Shot Caller. Go and give it a listen. But anyway, on the track, Sidhu was sending boastful messages to his enemies, and the theme of playing gangster on the mic would continue into his next single titled Bad Fella, another certified hit that has 145 million views to date. This was another American-inspired beat where a lowrider is seen crawling through the city. But despite the influence from American gangster rap, the song itself would actually pay homage to the Canadian gangsters in Brampton. Sidhu raps through the hook about having foreign gangsters all around him when he chills in the gang-related blocks of Brampton. And Sidhu rapped about having guns on him, shooting up trap houses, all while seemingly holding a police officer hostage. And he goes on to disrespect the police extensively on the track, rapping about how the police are following him and his crew and promising to destroy anyone in his way, saying that he can get to anybody and that his enemies are expensive, all while holding a rifle and saying that he will kill his enemies, and saying that he solves his problems with bullets. Now, this is also one of the first songs where Sidhu would actually begin his habit of speaking about his own death, as he raps that he knows he won't live long. Perhaps he didn't know it yet, but Sidhu would go on to refer to his own death frequently and arguably spoke it into existence in his music. Now, Bad Fellas was one of his most violent songs so far, and not everyone was feeling it. Soon after the video released, an NYPD officer of Punjabi heritage would release a video criticizing Sidhu for his violent lyrics and visuals and for not respecting the police in the video, particularly the scene where he cuffs a police officer and has him slumped on his knees.
Good morning, everyone. I have seen the video to Moosewala's new song Bad Fella. The song is very good, dude. The song is well written. The song is very good. But in the video, the guy made a little mistake. Dude, show me a policeman in this world who sits with his knees bent in front of you and bows his head. You talk like you know. We also support you. When the profession of others is not seen as low for praising your profession. How they get these jobs, you don't know. People work day and night to get these jobs, but they're still your fans. But come here whenever where the police is behind you. If they run you over, then I will leave my job.
Now, Sidhu would actually respond to these comments, saying that it's just...
So what do you mean by if they run you over, then I will leave my job?
Yeah, I guess he's saying if the police, if he's saying the police were the bad fellas, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And he's saying they not. He like, we good. These are good people. We work hard day and night to get this job. So if you come across one that do you wrong, I guess that's what he's saying. If you actually come across one that do you wrong, then I have to leave this job. It's, I guess to say, then right.
Right, I can't be associated with that.
Right, it's not a job I would want. Right. That's what I take from it.
And this coming from a New York police officer?
Well, yeah, but he's still
Punjab?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
now, Sidhu would actually respond to these comments, saying that it's just entertainment like a movie, and in the video he's just playing a character, going on to say that he thinks that they're just mad because it's him.
If that was anyone else that was doing it, shooting the police, it would be fine. When it's Sidhu Moosewala harming the police, it's seen as bad. If it was a part in a film, an actor there is villains and heroes. Everyone has a moving part.
Perhaps the controversy caused Sidhu to change his ways, at least momentarily, as his next release would be the January 2019 track I'm Better Now, this time opting to tone down the violence, releasing a much more female-focused love song. This is a breakup song essentially told from a female perspective. Interestingly, this song was kind of a moderate success to Sidhu's standards, garnering over 55 million views to date. Good numbers for any artist, but Sidhu's somebody that can put up hundreds of millions of views on the right song. But from this run of singles, Bad Fella, the most violent of the tracks released so far, was the biggest success. Clearly, fans wanted the violent gangster rap from Sidhu Moosewala, and he would continue giving them what they wanted. In February 2019, Sidhu would release again, and it would end up being another huge hit, this time choosing producers who created a much more digestible sound for the Western countries, similar to his second hit single, So High. On the 26th of February 2019, Sidhu released possibly his best single to date, the track Legend, produced by The Kid, and the song features a West Coast style beat, continuing to lean into Sidhu's influence from Tupac and the G-Funk music style from California, but this song has almost 250 million views, and it was the first official release that Sidhu chose to put out on his own channel rather than on the giant label T-Series' platform. And the song itself would apparently be released independently, meaning that financially Sidhu would be having a lot more to gain from his music from here on out. The song itself was once again concerned with his beefs and conflicts, and Sidhu opens the song saying that he has conflicts with countless people, followed by him once again eerily foreshadowing an early death, rapping that he knows his breaths are very limited, and going on to rap that even at such a young age, he's already considered a legend at this point at just age 25. And on the track, there would be plenty of gun talk too, with Sidhu boasting that he has a licensed firearm, even referring to the gun as his girlfriend. And in the next verse, Sidhu takes further shots at Karen Aujla, addressing the social media shots that were fired at him, saying that in real life they would not touch a hair on his head. He then references an interview where Aujla praised Sidhu's musical talent, claiming that silently Aujla is a fan. Sidhu then again mentions how his time here is limited, creepily somehow knowing at this point that his life was indeed in its last moments, and how his photo will be spread with breaking news as if Sidhu already knew what would happen after his eventual fate. The bridge of the song then samples a Notorious B.I.G. verse, again showing Sidhu's influence from that 90s golden age of hip-hop. Sidhu would then enter the third verse mentioning how his lyrics will live forever and how one of his songs is equal to a dozen of his competitors. During this time, Sidhu was really starting to break into the mainstream, becoming a titan in the Punjabi music industry. And even though he only had one full-length project to his name at this point, the number of views and streams on his singles cemented these as generational hits in India. Just like the song said, he was now a legend of the game at only 25, and he would continue this once-of-a-lifetime run, releasing hit after hit. Next was the love song Chosen, which now sits over 80 million views, followed by another street track called Outlaw that today sits over 58 million views. And Outlaw portrayed Sidhu like a real mob boss, calling his ops and telling them the exact time that he would be having them killed, and saying that he could have anyone kidnapped at any time. And the video featured a whole bunch of high-powered weapons, with Sidhu throwing the rifle to his hitters and taking out an op personally. And in the lyrics, Sidhu is claiming to have a large group of shooters and saying that you can't ever kill his whole gang, and that messing with his crew will lead to your certain death. He raps that his gang is out all night doing crimes, and they wear their accusations like medals, and that the things they have to do in the streets get the government talking. A bold and interesting lyric, considering there had already been outcry about violent lyrics and promoting firearms against Sidhu and other Punjabi artists all through 2018 and 19. Anyway, on the track, Sidhu would also once again meditate on his own impending death, rapping that any moment could be their last. In April, he would drop his next track, Eastside Flow, which now sits over 158 million views. And this was another American-themed track with a video decked out in lowriders and of course Sidhu's beloved Mercedes G-Wagon. At one point, he even hid a headline in the video, which was a Times of India article discussing Punjabi on Punjabi violence in Brampton in Canada. Now, this was an article that reported on apparent violent clashes between Punjabi groups on a Brampton college campus, amid suggestions that Indian gangsters were moving to Canada under the guise of studying, but then getting in the streets. Elsewhere in the East Side Flow video, Sidhu would also show a thumbnail from a YouTube channel called Severa Star Talks, who had dropped a video about him. Now, this YouTube channel actually reports extensively on the Punjabi rap scene and has made dozens of videos about Sidhu, regularly keeping track of any times the police have spoken out against him or any times that he clapped back, as well as having interviewed him personally at his home, where in one clip he actually asked Sidhu about the rising prominence of firearms in Punjabi culture, with Sidhu explaining that the wider culture dictates what everybody wears, eats and does, explaining that there's a time for everything, I guess including guns. He would also point out that there were times in the 80s and 90s where people got very active in the streets, suggesting that this is more to do with what's happening in wider society rather than the musicians making everyone violent with their songs.
Controversy has arisen and caused discussions. Some came from South India and claim that people want to start speaking Punjabi because in the Punjabi songs they are talking about guns, and since then there has been an increase in crime and drugs. What does Sidhu Moosewala think of this?
First of all, we ask those who talk about culture, what is the definition of culture? What is culture? What kind of clothes someone wear? It changes in time. The way a person eats, behaves, the culture that a person has in the surrounding environment. That's the culture. The 80s and 90s were the time when there was a talk of getting up and burning. Expensive cars were not available then. It used to be a matter of getting up and going. And when there was such atmosphere, you talk with that calculation.
But anyway, despite the controversy surrounding his violent lyrics, Sidhu continued leaning into his gangster persona. His next song was titled Mafia Style and today sits over 60 million views, despite not even having a music video. And the song had an interesting concept where Sidhu rapped that when he has his wedding, it has to be Mafia style, with a convoy of G-Wagons, guns in his jacket, and both British pounds and American dollars being thrown into the sky. But while Sidhu's gangster reputation had the whole of India talking, his street persona would ultimately begin to cause him problems with his career. He was blocked from performing in British Columbia, Canada, due to the police having concerns of violence popping off at the show. Unable to perform in summer 2019, Sidhu would get back in the studio and continued making hits, and his next anthem would come in August 2019 when he released the song Same Beef with Bohemia and Big Bird. And the track didn't disappoint fans who had grown to love Sidhu's tough as nails gangbanging lyrics. In Same Beef, Sidhu would rap about catching cases, gaining more ops, and being a shooter, and still beefing with the same people from his past, despite his newfound fame and success. He would even claim in one ominous bar that he still rides around in the same car and that he's not hiding from anyone. Sidhu also prophetically mentions how the bullet is his beginning and end, as well as saying that Toronto is still his hood. Big Bird then possibly sends some more shots at Karen Aujla, claiming that boys have become rich by copying him. And Sidhu later continues to flex his weaponry, claiming to have more weapons than friends, which is essential for his enemies. The track was clearly a shot at his ops, and Sidhu was doubling down on the violent themes that were attracting him attention, both good and bad. And the formula was working. This song was a huge hit today and sits over 500 million views. While Sidhu was capable of making love songs, it was those tough gangster rap bangers that really got him the numbers. But the following month, Sidhu experienced one of his first brushes of controversy beyond his violent lyrics when he released the song Jati Jion Morwagi. Ironically, the song didn't include any violent lyrics this time around. It was actually his usage of the name of a sacred figure in Sikh culture that actually had people offended. The song itself was more of a love song where Sidhu praises a tough woman who he says has strength, guts, a good name, and the ability to fight. But the deeper connotations of the song and its connection to the Sikh faith left some people upset. The track was condemned by the Sikh religious community, largely because the song was made to praise the Jat caste, which technically actually goes against one of the main pillars of the Sikh religion, which is to remove the caste system and treat people equally. As Sidhu was seen by the Sikh community as a turban-wearing entertainer who had made his Sikh faith part of his image, the religion's followers believed then that Sidhu had a responsibility to represent the faith correctly in his songs. More specifically, due to the song being centered around a young, attractive, gun-wielding Jat woman who keeps male gangsters in line, he projected her as a modern incarnation of Jion Moore. Moore, a colonial-era bandit known for vigilante violence, is a revered figure and seen as a symbol of bravery, essentially something like a kind of Robin Hood of the Punjab. And the song also seemed to allude to the 18th century Sikh warrior Mai Bhago, which is apparently what offended the Sikhs the most. Ironically, it wasn't the promotion of violence and guns which he had done for years in his music, but actually offending his religious elders that got him in the most trouble. Making a song where he put himself and his Jats above the rest of society, and confessing his love for a gangster woman who was based on a sacred figure from his religion, had the Sikh community furious, and things were very serious. Faced with the threat of a criminal case being lodged against him, Sidhu would have to face the Akal Takht, the highest temporal seat of the Sikhs. Seen at the bottom of the golden temples, this symbolizes the dispensing of justice. Sidhu would face the consequences of what he had said, and he would also issue a written apology that was circulated publicly. Interestingly, fans would actually gain respect for Sidhu after he so humbly accepted his wrongdoing and asked his religious elders for forgiveness in the best way possible. But it would seem that Sidhu had learned the hard way that there would indeed be limits when it came to pushing the boundaries with his art, and in the Punjabi world, offending the faith is a far bigger violation than promoting the gangster image. So, Sidhu would humbly move forward from this incident and continue developing his career. The same month he was going through this scandal in September 2019, he was also still racking up W's, having released another hit song, Dogar, as part of a prominent movie release, which racked up tens of millions of views. The movie itself, titled Terry Mari Jodi, also had a part for Moosewala. He was becoming a big star in India, and soon after this, he would begin having more and more success internationally, as also in 2019, Sidhu had gotten in contact with UK-based Punjabi and Sikh producer Steel Bangles. This connection was huge for Sidhu's future and legacy in music, as this connection gave him access to network with many international artists that Steel Bangles also worked with, as well as having top-tier production and mastering for his music. This connection would truly bridge the gap between the East and the West, allowing Sidhu to collaborate with many huge Western artists with some of the best beats in the game, so that he could truly conquer the international markets. And once Sidhu and Steel Bangles linked up, they would form a bond for life, collaborating on multiple songs together and eventually releasing a full-length album titled Moose Tape. Steel Bangles shares the same Punjabi and Sikh heritage as Sidhu, with his name Steel Bangles actually referring to the Kara worn on the right hand of all Sikhs, which is one of the religion's 5 Ks. The kara symbolizes an attachment to God, something that of course you would always see Sidhu wearing too. Now, Steel Bangles is a legendary hitmaker in the UK, and he's worked with an all-star list of UK artists, producing numerous classic hits, bangers with Mo Stack and AJ Tracey, and just crazy discography. And his production had played a huge role in the rise of Birmingham rapper, now influencer boxer, Mist. Mist himself was a huge staple in the Punjabi community, as he heavily featured Punjabi slang and language in his hit rap songs, such as the words apnars, which is a term South Asians use to determine another one of their own people, Kalas, which means black people, and Goras, which means white people. With the UK rap scene exploding, and with Punjabi lingo being pushed to the forefront, this was the perfect time for Sidhu to collaborate. And in October 2019, after first establishing that close relationship with Steel Bangles, they would release a joint track titled 47, featuring Mist and legendary female rapper Stefflon Don. This is yet another track detailing Sidhu's love for firearms, with the song being called 47 to pay homage to the infamous automatic rifle, the AK-47. The beat itself features a traditional Punjabi sarangi being played over trap drums and heavy 808s. Another song that made it easy for Western audiences to digest the Punjabi sound, as well as another perfect example of just how infatuated Sidhu was with gangster rap from all different countries. And with a producer like Steel Bangles on the beat, the quality of the production was on a whole nother level, better than a lot of the stuff in Sidhu's discography so far. Further, choosing to collaborate with the UK rap legends like Mist and Stefflon Don on the same track put millions of eyes on Sidhu that he had never had on him before. The song will begin with Sidhu explaining that he will stand tall in front of gun barrels, never fearing death. And as the 808s drop, Sidhu sings the chorus explaining that his enemies call him 47 because of the AK that he's known to tote. Mist then begins his verse, rapping in a mix of Punjabi and English, saying that he blew a chase from the Mame, which is Punjabi from police. Sidhu then continues singing about his infamy and how he keeps an arsenal of weaponry, even mentioning how his lyrics have shot down his enemies, eventually ruining their careers. Karen Algila is reeling after that one. Sidhu would also claim that his name is associated with a number of cases because he takes people's breath away. He then mentions his contradictions in religion as he starts the day with prayers and ends the day with sin, asking the listener to check the news to see what he's all about. And again, he mentions his warrior lineage and how he was built for fighting. 47 was a certified banger that appealed to people in both Western rap and Punjabi music. Sidhu's fame and exposure was about to reach a new high in the UK as the song exploded. It now sits at 82 million views, which is insane numbers for the UK rap scene, which remember, the UK is like the size of just one American state. It was likely that even though Mist and Stefflon Don were big stars in their own right in the UK, this song was a huge W for their careers too. This ended up being Mist's most viewed song of his career, with his second most viewed video currently being at 58 million views, and for Stefflon Don, this ultimately became her 5th most viewed single on YouTube. The song was a mainstream success and even landed at number 17 on the official UK singles charts. And this song was also when Sidhu began becoming the perfect recipe for success in the YouTube reaction community. As these crossover tracks were getting such big numbers, English-speaking reactors would jump online, making videos reacting to the lyrics and breaking them down, which ultimately grew their own audiences in the Punjabi world, with many reactors getting their most viewed videos to date reacting to Sidhu Moosewala's new song. Sidhu, Stefflon and Mist would go on to perform the song at the Brit Asian Music Awards in 2019, with that performance itself sitting at 30 million views. And on the same night, Sidhu had a clean run at the awards, winning in 4 categories, including the Best Album Award for PBX1, as well as Track of the Year for Legend, and the award for Best International Male Act and Best Lyricist. It was safe to say that Sidhu ended 2019 on an all-time high, after bridging the gap with his Western audience and sweeping the award shows on an international stage. The next year, Sidhu chose to continue bridging that gap, reaching new highs in both India and abroad. And another development would be that throughout 2020, Sidhu began getting more and more active on social media, and he would treat his social media presence the same way as his music. In fact, online, he chose to go all out on the gangster persona, showing off his firearms as well as the tattoos he was getting and letting the world know that he was really living the dangerous lifestyle he portrayed in his raps, taking the authentic gangster rap persona to levels never really seen before in the Punjabi music community. But behind the scenes, it wasn't just his gangster persona that was developing, but also his real ties and interactions with real gangs in the underworld of India and Canada, with these dangerous activities ultimately attracting him a lot of negative attention that would ultimately come back to haunt him, from both the gangsters running in the streets of India and Canada, as well as the authorities that are meant to protect him from them.
What you think so far?
I mean, I don't know. Of course, it's interesting because, I mean, they make it. I mean, of course, they try to make it seem like he's so thuggish, gangster. He just still didn't come across like that to me. He still just came across as this. I don't know. He didn't come across like that to me. Even with him rapping like that, he still to me just seemed so genuine, just nice still.
Right.
Like he just, like he was a good guy trying to do right. We got people out here.
He said not bad by heart.
There you go. That's what I should have said. That's how he still come across to me, even with people trying to make it seem like he was this, gangster. He never came across.
Saying maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was just in the music.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I agree. That's very true to me.